If you're ever wondering what we get up to on these international test drives of vehicles, well, I mean, you get to go for swims and dip in the sea in Greece. But there's actually a good reason for it. I have some downtime because I managed to get the new Volkswagen Transporter stuck after taking it on the road after about 5 minutes. Welcome to Nobby on Cars. If you don't want to watch me being a total idiot, just skip in to 6 minutes for the full review, or do watch me being a total idiot. The choice is yours. Believe it or not, this is not actually the first time I managed to get a vehicle stuck. But the last time it was a Ford Ranger Raptor, and I made sure the video never saw the light of day. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of colleagues with me on this trip who have managed to come down to the location, laugh, take some pictures, and leave again. I have, however, found something useful for an Apple Watch. I can click on the tide button and find out that there's about 5 hours left to high tide to get this thing out. Later on in this video, I will actually get to review the new VW Transporter and show you around it and tell you all some of the cool features that it comes with once the cavalry arrives. The cavalry did arrive in the form of the latest gen Amarok with 4Motion goodness, a key part of getting this brand new van unstuck. Sorry.
Okay, dann ziehen wir noch ein bisschen nach vor. Okay.
I was clearly useless here, but I felt like I should be doing something.
Yeah.
Even with the rope now attached, things were not quite over.
That was the rope. If this was Jaws, they'd say we're going to need a bigger rope.
Soon after, some locals arrived for a gawk and a swim, and a restaurant next door lent us some of their boardwalk for grip.
Zeig mal, wie weit müssen wir ranfahren jetzt?
Gut, das reicht. Gut.
So, everybody's trying to help. The tow rope keeps snapping, attached to the Amarok. And there's a local restaurant beside us, and they found a shovel. This German man sounds kind of angry, but I think he's okay. So for those of you that are familiar with your partner having a baby, you feel kind of useless, just there. That's kind of how I feel right now. Well, we can definitely test the fact, Graham, that the Transporter is sand-proof on the inside. It's quite sandy in there, and it's fine. The interior's fine. You know when you're a kid and you do something bad and everyone's rallying around you and they're trying their best and you know you've really messed up. You're just waiting for someone to say, I'm just disappointed. At least I'm getting stuck in because I feel very stupid right now.
Digging your own grave there, no?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I'm sure Wolfsburg will give me a lovely send-off though. I mean, there is up to 10% more space for cargo in the back of the new Transporter. I mean, you could definitely fit shovels. There's also the option to get 3 different plugs in the electric and PHEV version, so you could actually get a hydraulic shovel or digger if you get it stuck on a beach. I really didn't think we were going to actually be able to get this stuff as part of telling you about the new Transporter, but it's actually working quite well. Also, it's coming in 4-wheel drive soon. I wish this one was. With decent makeshift grip now under the wheels and less slack on the rope, we gave it one last try. Well, the lads did.
Weiter.
And then we managed to get the Transporter free. And oh my God, it felt good. Dankeschön. What What is the German word for idiot?
Für what?
For idiot.
No words.
Clown.
Clown.
Stupid.
For you, Nobby, there are no words.
Einen Meter.
It's like the Germans just sound different when they're
Zieh ich ihn noch weiter raus.
when they're giving orders, telling you what to do. They just sound
Auf dem Parkplatz.
they sound
Und du
they sound
achtest
different.
darauf, hier steht ein Zaun.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. He's not giving up till that thing is out of any potential danger from an idiot. Yes, if one thing it demonstrates how good the Amarok is,
Yeah.
get the V6 4Motion. It can pull a transporter out of bed. Okay, so we're back on dry land, solid land. It was very nearly wet land. That restaurant, go visit it because they helped us get out. These ladies appeared with cardboard, shovels. We would still be stuck if it wasn't for them. Time to review the new Transporter from Volkswagen. Welcome to Nobby on Cars. VW have never offered more powertrains with the Transporter. It's never been more convenient to get something like a Euro pallet inside. And coming soon will be a plug-in hybrid version and a fully electric 64 kilowatt hour battery version. There's also an all-wheel drive version. And I've taken it away from the sea to have a better look around today, show you some of the inside, show you what's changed, show you the interior space in the rear, and give you a look around at this 7th generation Transporter. Some of you will know, some of you may not know, that this Transporter is part of VW's alliance with Ford, so in many ways this is a Transit, but as often happens in the commercial van world, the brands just stick a different badge on the front of it and put it on sale. VW have put their own nose on their Transporter and their own badge, obviously enough, and some VW touches have made it inside the cabin area as well. On the front of it, you'll be able to get matrix headlights as an optional extra if you like. You get the IQ lights here. They are very, very bright, very useful. The way they weave around dark country lanes is brilliant and something to consider maybe if you're going to be doing lots of night driving in your Transporter. Indeed, if you're a fleet manager watching this because you're trying to narrow down a couple of options, it is going to make your staff happier, I think, in terms of comfort. Again, just briefly harking back to the Transit, it's always been the van to match when it comes to driving dynamics, and now those driving dynamics have made it into the VW. The suspension is really, really good, and if you're going to be on the road for long journeys, that's where I think staff will love you for picking the Transporter. The panel van is 5.05 metres long. It's 146 millimetres longer than the 6.1 Transporter. And that's where you get an idea of how much more space has now gone into the rear area. On the back of the Transporter, you can get a couple of options. Barn doors if you wish, or you can also get a tailgate that lifts up, 2 wipers on either side, and just good visibility at the back because there's a partition wall and you can do lots of different customization with the partition. For example, if you want to have an extra loading area, you can spec that where there's a bit more space to load longer beams of wood or metal through the van. Really, the customization and the diversity in different specs, whether it's double chassis cabs, there's obviously the Caravelle as well. There's just lots of options here. And then for passengers, Volkswagen reminded us this morning that they still have the Buzz and the Multivan if you want to stick to a pure VW product. Even on the standard wheelbase version, space in here has increased a little bit, and on these barn doors you get some cargo nets. Also on the plug-in hybrid and the fully electric version of the Transporter, there will be the option to have 3 power sockets, so they will do up to 2.3 kilowatt power output. You can use saws, you can charge drills, all those things that you might want to do when you're on the road. The load compartment on the van floor with the standard wheelbase is 102 inches, an increase of almost 2.5. The extended wheelbase, the load compartment length increases to 118 inches. The largest stowage volume of the versions with the regular wheelbase is now 204.8 cubic feet. And if you need the longer wheelbase with the high roof, those versions will be able to hold up to 317.8 cubic feet of cargo. Not only has the wheelbase increased in the standard wheelbase in terms of length, it's also a little bit wider between the wheels, so now you can easily fit Euro pallets into the back. On the crew cab version then, you can decide where this partition goes, and there's a little bit of a glass window, which actually means you can see out the back through the rearview mirror of a van, which is often quite rare. There's also the option of a high definition rearview camera mirror, which would probably help further, and the 360 overview parking is also an option extra, but probably worth considering. Obviously a side door on the rear, and the payload capacity in the new Transporter is 1.3 tonne. Towing capacity on the ICE, the diesel versions, up to 2.8, that's up 300 kilos. For the battery electric version, 2.3 tonne towing capacity, which is still very decent. And on the roof, there's an extra 20 kilos now. You can store up to 170 kilos on the roof. And the turning circle in the Transporter is only a little bit larger than a Golf at about 13 metres. And with all the turns I had to do today on the beach, I can verify that. Up front in the Transporter, a steering wheel that you would get in a passenger VW. Again, trying to give you that sense of it's just like driving a car. And in many ways, and we'll cover it when we're driving, it does feel like that. There's never been more standard equipment inside a Transporter either. So you're now getting this large screen, climate control, CarPlay, Android Auto, full graphics displayed here, and lots of physical buttons, not haptic buttons, but just standard physical buttons. So it's a mix of VW switchgear, a little bit of Ford switchgear, good door pockets for chucking bottles and things that you might have on you. I do sort of wish there was a bit more space somewhere here for a phone. Like there is this little tray down here. It's kind of out of your reach potentially. You've got this storage area up here, complete with some USB-C charging options for faster charging devices, and there's a little cup holder down here also, and that's probably where you'd end up sticking your phone if it would fit, but it is a little bit small. It's just a minor thing, but let's not pretend van drivers don't need to glance at their phones or be there. Good angle on the seat back. Again, I kind of love an armrest here for that longer journey driving. Good size glove box as well as a split top. So again, that's got some decent space for keeping documents or valuable things, or maybe here's some directions from VW to tell me where to go after getting their van stuck. There are some drinks holders, but they're kind of weirdly shaped. So they've got it like it's a round bottle into a square hole. This one in particular is not that deep. So don't put anything hot or wet into it, because yeah, you'll have a messy lap for the rest of the afternoon. The gear selector has now been moved up here, in the automatic versions at least, so you have a lot more space just from switching from one side of the van to the other. I've noticed a lot of Amazon delivery drivers in particular sometimes just like to access the door, and obviously their cabs would have access here in some of the longer crafter size vehicles, but just slide from one option to the next, whatever is quicker getting in and out. And you'll be able to do this in the Transporter also. If your delivery stop is nearer your passenger door, for example, you can jump in that side and get in and get out. Things like this 360 overview camera, which is an optional extra, just gives you a lovely idea of where you are when you're trying to maneuver a van, which doesn't always have the best of visibility in the rear. From a safety and penalty points point of view, it will beep at you for speed signs if you want to hold on to your license and keep it clean for driving, but you can turn some of those safety features off. They're not too hard to do. There's a shortcut assist button here. Go into your additional settings. That will turn off the beeps, but you also have the speed demonstrated here. There's frontal collision avoidance, which will stop you hitting items in front of you, and there's lane keep assist for those windier journeys on motorways or whatever it is. There is also in the electric version a smaller battery version coming. I'm not sure if it will come to the Irish market, but the idea being you don't need a huge battery to get around city centre locations, so there'll be a smaller range, smaller battery, and presumably cheaper option in the e-Transporter. Depending on your pulling power, or how much pulling power you need is probably a better way of saying it, there's quite a number of TDI options available, and those powertrains are Ford power plants, because I know a lot of people have been asking just a very simple straight up question: is it a Ford engine or a VW engine? It's Ford. VW are offering a very comprehensive warranty on all versions of the Transporter as standard to offer some reassurance to past Transporter customers. I'll give you all the details of that at the end of the video. Obviously this van is not fully loaded with cargo, but from driving many different Transits over the years, and Transporters for that matter, but particularly the Transit where this is so closely related, it's always been the one to match in terms of driving dynamics. So corners and just overall handling is pretty decent for a van. In fact, one of my good mates drives Transits all the time, and one thing he will testify is that the driving experience is pretty good. There is a high-powered 4Motion version on the way as well for those who need a little bit more grip. I do kind of wish there was something, especially for the phone, a more obvious place to stick your phone, because things do move around, and as much as holding a phone is not safe while driving, even if it's I'm going to have a look at that later, I just feel van drivers need a bit more space to put tablets, maybe electronic signature units, and there's just nowhere apart from the passenger seat to chuck them, and they're going to rattle around. On these pretty decent roads around Athens, the suspension is comfortable. It's certainly a van that you could see yourself doing a longer journey in. You've got radar cruise control to assist with that as well. So it doesn't feel like a clunky, laborious thing to drive the way some vans, particularly with a slightly less refined, more clattery diesel engine, can be. There's a good bit of mid-range punch in this as well if you do have it laden down with goodies, but I would definitely say work out what kind of weight you're going to regularly be carrying in the van and choose your powertrain and your brake horsepower output based on that. On the fuel consumption front, about 8.7 litres per 100 kilometres. I said I'd have a little look at the e-Transporter as well. So for the first time you get your Transporter fully electric. An 83 kilowatt hour battery, but 64 kilowatt hour net. There's a huge difference there. There's only a first gen Nissan Leaf size gap in that difference. The reason for this huge gap is thermal propagation, which is essentially the management of how hot the battery gets. And Ford have decided that they want that buffer zone in the e-Transit and e-Transporter. Now, as soon as I jumped on board this one, going over ramps feels more thud. The weight of the van is more pronounced. The handling is not as good. So there's definitely a drawback from a driving dynamics point of view in the electric version. The towing capacity is slightly down as well. It's 2.3 ton versus 2.5, but still pretty decent. And you just don't feel as confident going into the corners, and everything goes even more flying in this EV version of the Transporter. I've also noticed the B pillar giving you a huge blind spot. It'll be the same on this side as well if you're driving a right-hand drive at home. It's very hard to see around blind corners the way that is positioned. But it's much quieter. There's a very powerful electric one on the way with not quite 300 brake horsepower, but a lot of brake horsepower. And they'll have to do something with the suspension setup to cope with that power, I think. VW also say this E version is good for a range of up to 357 kilometers. Obviously, if you put some weight into that, depending on temperature and all the usual variables with electric vehicles. Are we talking about 300 being a fairer kind of a range? Energy consumption, 21 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. It's not exactly an aerodynamically designed vehicle, as much as they soften the nose. Put the boot down. There's no level of urgency that you would normally get in an EV. I think it's fair to say this is definitely the type of van that is suited to shorter city centre runs. I mean, it'll do the longer journey, but any sort of longer driving, every thud is more pronounced. There's way more body roll. If there is a such thing as a driver's van, then the internal combustion engine version is it. And yes, it is rear wheel drive, so you could technically try and get the back out on it versus the other version I've been driving, which is front wheel drive. Transporter then. There's only really two options on the market now. The one from the other company we've mentioned who have jumped into bed with VW for the Transporter, and this one. If you want a really comfortable van that does drive like a car, that has so many variants, whether it's double crew cab, the Caravelle that is a 9-seater or up to a 9-seater. Something I noticed today as well, and VW don't really do this. At the press launch this morning, they spoke about the quality checks that they will do on every single van. I know from all the comments on the really quick preview I had of the Transporter, there's some people are really upset that VW have teamed up with Ford to make the new Transporter. And I'm sure VW knew about the heritage and the love and the passion there is for all 6 generations that have gone before it. We have to remember, however, VW aren't, one, going to make huge amounts of money by selling one van to one person. They're aiming predominantly at fleets. And also, as much as we get enjoyment out of the brand and the product because we're car people, the best way to make money from a van these days is to pair up. It's not the first time we've seen it between major brands either. However, VW Ireland seem to be aware of all of the, oh, it's not a VW anymore. 5 years roadside assistance, 5 years servicing and 5 years warranty. It's the longest warranty they've ever offered in the Transporter, which suggests they're pretty happy to back it. Looking around today, it feels like they've got one for just about everybody in the audience, depending on powertrain or size or configuration. The other thing you should do is come to holiday in Greece, because it's absolutely beautiful and the grub is amazing. So thank you for coming with me this far on this Transporter review, and thanks for watching.